Very cute.
For 2 minutes.
I'm sorry, yes, he outside, so.
What were you, Air Force? Okay, my son was in the Air Force and he was like, this is just, I should have stayed in college. I said, I told you. You didn't.
Her situation was straightened out.
Yeah, he did. My son did the Air Force.
How many years?
Asking me questions that I don't really pay attention to.
Okay. And I couldn't
He could
tell.
tell you, but I can't. It was a very,
But
very.
at the end of the day, wherever they live, there are some apartments that are in Effingham, or not apartments,
Initially when I was
houses.
17, I
Half
just
of
joined
the
the
housing
college.
complexes in Effingham,
You
Howard
know,
and they didn't know.
I messed around.
Now, it's not excusable that they let them leave and don't give them any guidance. Might not be customer service.
It is, you know.
All right,
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming out.
microphone.
Yeah, you get to say that, you get to tell me. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Board Accountability Committee meeting on September 1st, 2026. I'm real eager for us to get started, so I'm going to make my remarks very short. First, let's do an approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Is there a second?
Second.
Who's our, oh, Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith is not here, our other committee member. Okay. Now, may I have a motion to approve the minutes from January 27th, 2026?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Finally, approval of the minutes from April 28th, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, very good. I like to say this at the beginning of each meeting to just remind us of our purpose. The strategic plan entitled Unlimited Possibilities 2031 received unanimous support from this board. As chair of the Accountability Committee, our task will be to diligently track and monitor the progress of our staff toward completing the projected outcomes of this plan. By providing an environment of trust and encouragement, we can invest our district leadership with the desire and the will to take ownership of this effort and find success. So we are partners in this journey. I would like to say that on Sunday, I was at a celebration for Pastor Smith's 5th anniversary at his church, Bethlehem Missionary Church. And when I mentioned our strategic plan, that he was a part of the board and this was our work for now, it received so much applause, it kind of shocked me. But the public is invested in us trying to get our third graders reading, 95% of them reading by 2031. They are invested in it and they applauded for it. So that really made me feel wonderful. It was kind of a shock. I said, oh. So we're on the radar. So everyone needs to know that. The other thing, we're going to save all of our questions until the end so that our presenters have a chance at success to finish what they wanted to tell us today. So please write down any thoughts you have, any questions you might have. And now I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Watts.
I won't delay us getting started, obviously, as we bring Dr. Taylor up to the podium to kick us off. I am elated to hear the applause that you received for our strategic plan. There's so many organizations, entities, and individuals that are in great support of the work that we are trying to do, and I think this discussion will give the community, board members, and our employees insight into how we're actually tracking how that work will get accomplished and holding ourselves accountable for that work. So with that said, and without further delay, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Taylor.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
So I will continue what both of you ladies have started. Our strategic plan has set some intentionally ambitious and bold goals, and we believe that our students can achieve at significantly higher levels, and we've built a plan around that expectation. You'll notice or see a strong emphasis on literacy because literacy is foundational for every student at every grade level. But I do want to share that that does not mean that literacy is the only thing that we are monitoring. We will continue to monitor outcomes for all students across all subjects and grades, as well as today we'll have a chance to talk a little bit about how we are monitoring the conditions that make possible the outcomes that we want for students. So today's conversation will walk us through, as you've already heard, how the district will monitor and track our progress and hold ourselves accountable for those ambitious goals that we've set forth. Again, it's all about the strategic plan. So we'll go again, make the connection to the strategic plan, how we monitor our progress and hold ourselves accountable. And I think this is very important to note, is not separate or apart from the strategic plan. It is intentionally embedded or directly connected to our strategic plan. In Pillar 4, Operational Excellence and Accountability, you'll notice that priority 4.1 is around monitoring and modernizing district data and our performance systems. And so really what we're going to have a conversation around today is how in our day-to-day work do our measures, outcomes, and accountability come to life. Three big buckets for our conversation today is we'll unpack what we are measuring, how we will monitor what we're measuring, and then what happens as it relates to execution or work in between reporting and monitoring. And then we're also pleased to share with you how we want to engage BAC as it relates to monitoring on a quarterly basis. I want to start with our measurement framework, and this isn't new. I don't remember, but last spring we introduced you to our goals and how we were tiering our goals, but I wanted to start the conversation here as a refresher for us all. We've organized our goals into 3 tiers, with each tier answering a different question. So our Tier 1 goals focus on our long-term goals and annual targets, and it tells us whether or not we're achieving our aspirational outcomes that we've committed to throughout the life of the plan. Tier 2 includes our progress indicators, and these measure or tell us where our performance is at a moment in time and whether the academic as well as the enabling conditions needed to reach our Tier 1 goals are moving in the right direction. Both Tier 1 and Tier 2 goals are public-facing and form the foundation of how we monitor and hold ourselves accountable. Tier 3, and this is a little different from the initial conversation we had in the spring, but Tier 3 takes a look at execution, and in our Tier 3 space, that's where we make adjustments to our tactics, and that is where you won't see public facing. It is internal, and it is about milestones, and it is where our internal teams are looking to see if they're getting the traction they desire to move us closer to our Tier 1 goals. And the other thing that's important about Tier 3 goals, and that's why they're not public facing, this is where our teams are making adjustments based on what they learn about performance or execution. I've talked to you about the 3 tiers of goals, but I want to use an example to kind of bring it to life so you see how it behaves or reacts in our ecosystem. So here, if we use, let's just take, for example, 3rd grade reading to show how the tiers work. Tier 1, in this example, is the final destination or the long-term outcome. So by 2031, we want 95% of all 3rd grade students meeting the GMAS reading on grade level benchmark. So again, that's our final destination. If you move to Tier 2, that's our progress checkpoint. So it helps us see where performance is at any point in time during the year and whether or not students are on track for meeting the Tier 1 or long-term goal. Then if you were to go over to Tier 3, this is where execution again and adjustment happens. This is the work that our chiefs and their teams are doing in response to the data, and it tells us what things need to be done in service of Tier 1 and Tier 2 goals and what adjustments might need to be made. So again, the Tier 3 space is where you will see our execution work. I want to pivot with another example, because when you look at the goals, you might ask yourself, what about the things that aren't instructional? How are we monitoring those things, and how are we holding ourselves accountable for things outside of student outcomes? And what I want to point out in this example is we recognize that though we've named 6 student outcomes as our goals and our plan, we also know it's very important for other things, and what these other things are going to be called the enabling conditions, to be in place in order for us to achieve our Tier 1 goals. And so here's an example of a non-academic Tier 2 goal. And this again is where you'll see an enabling condition. And in this example, what I've taken is teacher vacancies. So teacher vacancies are not the end goal, but we would probably all agree, or we know, that in order for us to achieve our Tier 1 goals, we have to have strong instruction, which requires making sure that we have the very best teachers in front of our students. And so this is one of the things that I want to raise up and point out, because it may feel and look a little different. We're not just focusing on instructional outcomes, we are also monitoring the conditions that make possible the outcomes that we want for students, both year to year as well as throughout the life of the plan. I am particularly pleased about how we're monitoring. We are using 45-day plans or 45-day sprints to capture and bring together the pieces that we're monitoring. And we are leveraging the 45-day sprint plans to create a clear line from the Tier 1 outcome to the Tier 2 progress indicator to the Tier 3 tactic that will move the performance that we're expecting. The 45-day plans give us a way to regularly plan, do, study, and act. And again, these are living documents, and they're not about compliance. You created a plan to create a plan. These plans are guiding what the teams are doing, and they're making adjustments in real time. And the goal is really to shorten the distance between the strategy and action. So a plan is only as good as its execution. So we have a great plan, but we wanted to close the loop between the strategies that we've named and the plan that we've put forth, and actually executing or implementing those things that we say we know are important. And our 45-day plan will allow us to, plans are allowing us to do that. Here's an example for demonstration purposes only. So a couple of my colleagues were like, is this a real plan? It is a real format of the plan, but this is not actually a plan, because somebody was like, well, I didn't say I would do that. But this is an example of a plan. I won't go through everything in the plan, but I want you to see what it looks like and what I want to highlight about the way in which the plan is organized. And I will say this, and I want to just give a huge kudos to both the Strategy, Innovation, and Performance team, as well as the chiefs and the superintendent, for being really supportive of this work being iterative. We started off with a very robust system with all the bells and whistles, but lots of emails to the chief on the side. What do you think? What should we cut off? And so we intentionally landed somewhere that was simple, because what's important to us is that it's something that our teams could manage and has a guide for their day-to-day work. We don't want to add things or make things, again, as I've mentioned before, compliance exercises. So the plan is simple by design, and at its core, it answers a few basic questions. The first one is, what are the key milestones? When will they be accomplished? Who is responsible for getting them done? What is the current status? What evidence supports completion? And are there any dependencies that could impact the progress? If you recall, one of the things we shared as we brought the plan forward is it's unique in it's not owned by one individual department. Sometimes we may be accustomed to thinking about things related to talent or HR, or things related to leadership or schools. But what you'll notice across our plan is it's very cross-functional and dependent on more than one department. And so it's important for us to always monitor and watch where we are with dependencies, because that helps not only accelerate, but it could also help bottleneck, or not help, but it could bottleneck the work. And so that's something that we keep a close eye on, and our teams are working very cross-functionally to execute this plan. The intent, again, is to create a structure to support clarity, accountability, and regular monitoring without making it a compliance exercise. And I have to say that for myself as well as my team, because sometimes we can be distracted by, let's give them a whole bunch to do and have a lot of components, but it doesn't get to the heart of moving the work forward. And what we feel like this 45-day plan does is get to the heart of advancing the work as it relates to executing the plan. So again, thank you to the team. Now I want to shift or talk a little bit about how we actually will be monitoring and where you will see monitoring happening. So we'll use our Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 goals across the framework that I just mentioned, but what I want to note about the monitoring is the monitoring changes based on the audience. And so these plans or our work around execution is being monitored at the team, chief, cabinet, and extended cabinet levels. And monitoring is ongoing. So it is, again, not a thing that we do occasionally, but we've built an ongoing cadence to monitor our plans. And also, we will be bringing forward not only to BAC, but also to our board spaces, more things around monitoring as it relates to progress. At BAC, and again, this is a shift, at BAC, the focus will be quarterly performance reviews, and we'll focus on progress in our Tier 2 space towards our Tier 1 goals. So every quarter, we'll bring in our progress toward all of our goals. So that's what we can expect moving forward in our BAC spaces. And what you'll notice during our quarterly reviews is we'll be looking at where we are against our annual targets, what the trends are telling us, and whether the conditions needed to achieve our goals are strengthening. And for the board and public, this reporting will be external facing as well as an internal indicator that we'll be looking at. Though the focus will not be on Tier 3 goals, we recognize that as we're monitoring, some of the Tier 3 pieces may come up to help support the progress that we're making or talk about changes that we need to incorporate to advance or accelerate our work. So the focus won't be on Tier 3, but Tier 3 updates may come into play as you look at where we are performance-wise. I've talked a little bit about it, but this slide just kind of recaps what I mentioned, what will be shown in each quarter. It, again, is going to be looking at these three questions. Where are we? What are the indicators telling us? What's driving the result? And what we will be doing next. So when you get the BAC quarterly updates, those are the lenses in which we will be presenting the data as it relates to where we are and where we plan to go to achieve our goals. You may also recall both in budget season as well as through our strategic plan work, we talked to you about standing up a dashboard. And so we're excited to let you know that we're making progress. Here you'll see where we are with the rollout. We are being very deliberate about the rollout because one of the things that we recognize that the credibility of the dashboard depends on the validity of the data. So we're working extremely hard around our data governance and making sure that we have the right integration so that the data is valid. In the foundation, we've really started this summer, and we are just closing out window 1, and we're entering into window 2 with some final validations. And again, it's been a cross-functional effort, working with the technology team and across other departments as we validate the data. And we're looking to begin to launch at the end of October, going into November. This final slide, and this again is for demonstration purposes only, but this gives you a sense of what you might see in the dashboard. And this is a sample view, not a final dashboard, but I want to illustrate the direction in which we're heading. At a glance, you'll see the academic progress indicators along important enabling conditions such as talent, transportation, financial performance, and other enabling conditions. The objective for us is not to create more data, it's to make the data we already have easier to understand. Because we really always want to use our data to answer this question: where are we? What do we need to watch? and where does the administration need to be responding. And we have lots of data sources, but one of the things that was really important with this dashboard is that we brought everything together in a way that we can not only use internally, but also share out externally. And then the final slide, you'll notice this, and I believe you have a copy of it as well, but this is our monitoring focus and when we will be reporting on specific topics. Not only did we provide the date, but we've also provided the meeting and the specific focus area that that particular data report will share with you, or data presentation will share with you. The data report will share with you, or data presentation will share with you. Per Ms. Hall's request, I will pause now. I appreciate you all waiting to the very end for questions, but I feel like I was talking a lot, so I am very interested to hear what your questions are or any feedback that you might have.
I have to remember that I have to wait till last now. I can't start. So who would like to ask a question? Really? Oh, wow, okay,
Or
No.
feedback.
okay. Uh-huh,
Questions or feedback?
okay. Feedback? Mary? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your
That's
hand.
okay. I just wanted to say that she was really very thorough in explaining what was being done, what would be answered, and how it would be reported out. So that's why I don't have any questions, because all the questions that I may have had were answered in your report.
Okay. Steph?
So I think this is fantastic. I love the dashboard. This is insane. Good for you. I mean, this work, this is,
Good for us. That is truly a team effort. Again, I cannot thank the Strategy, Innovation, and Performance team, as well as every chief, because this work is iterative. So what you see, it is thorough because the team is vetting, constantly giving feedback. I guess it was yesterday. That is literally hot off the press because the team was pushing, trying to figure out what made the most sense as far as sequence is concerned. So thank you, but I also want to just acknowledge the teamwork that has gone into everything that we're doing around monitoring.
well, I appreciate all the, like, when we know what to expect, and, I mean, that just takes away any question we could have about when or how it's going to come up. So that is amazing. So some questions that I had, when you were talking about, let's see, I don't know what slide this is, 5 maybe? So I know you said this is just an example, it is not necessarily the actual data. But what are we going to use, like, for this one facet that we're going to be watching, that everyone's, like Ms. Hall said at the beginning, is keenly watching? What are we using to determine on track? Is it a Mira? Is there a standard?
It is a mirror. We will be using a mirror data.
Okay.
Not for, we won't be using NWA for on track. We'll be using NWA for achievement.
Correct.
Yes, so I'm sorry. We won't be
Okay.
using, we'll be using a mirror to determine on track, and we'll be using NWA a map for achievement. And you'll notice that one of the goals is around student proficiency and beyond in GMAS, so that's the one that we'll be using MAP for. But the early literacy will be using a mirror.
Awesome. And then I understand, I don't think we should be micromanaging on any board or any committee how you guys are working at these things when you're working at them this diligently. I think this is fantastic. But will the Tier 2 enabling indicators eventually be tested against, like, for instance, some of the slides, and I know that these are not necessarily exactly what's being measured, but, like, there was something in here about filling vacancies and not even referencing teacher vacancies, but using all of the budget. So are we going to, and you even mentioned when you said this slide, let me preface with this too, that this is obviously not the total outcome is just filling teacher vacancies. You said the outcome is obviously student success, right? So,
Yes.
but are we going to be looking at some of these enabling indicators which are necessary against tier one outcomes to see which ones actually moved the needle?
Correlation of
Yes.
which ones contribute the most to the least. I think that would be
have to conduct a
an
regression
interesting
analysis.
study.
There's some regression analysis that is involved in that, and so,
As long as they're continuous.
so there is some work that we'll do around that, but what I will tell you, and again, it's iterative, is we do have what each of the targets are for our enabling conditions, and I think that's not quite a regression study, but what it does show you is what we're expecting of each of the enabling conditions. So it's not just to say that the enabling conditions should get better. They also have specific targets that we did not provide, but we can also bring those forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, again, it's not even a criticism, it's just kind of a question of,
It is like, it's a good thing to look at.
And I think the way this is set up allows us to do that.
right, which is just building on data that you're already getting, not asking for something different.
Exactly.
Mainly, I guess the reason it even triggered it for me was like making sure we use all the budget. We want to do that. In the past, that's been maybe a struggle, and that's one of our aims. But what if we don't use it, where were we falling short? Or what if we do use it all, but it didn't really move the needle?
Makes
So
sense.
maybe we need less, or you know what I'm saying?
I think that's something for us to dig deeper in, and there's some ways in which we can do that. And to the superintendent's point, the way that we're looking at data will position us well to do that.
Well, and it's not only just looking at the data. The 45-day plans will give us insight and codify the actions that were taken. So data, remember, data never lies, but it never tells the whole truth either. I believe that. For me, the 45-day plans, that's important because you need to know what actions you took or didn't take to get the result. And the only place that that's captured is in the 45-day plan. So you could lay that on top of the data and say, oh, that's why this worked, or maybe this is why it didn't work.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going. That would be awesome. And and without, again, not micromanaging, I think it's good we're doing it quarterly. I think that's even more than we could ask for, so I appreciate that. And you gave us a whole bunch of dates for things, which is fantastic. Will we, at least internally maybe, or if something falls through within this 45-day structure, like before you move into the next cycle, I don't think we should be told, or anyone needs to be told if something didn't work, that you're trying something else. But will we know like what we're aiming at, maybe even privately, where it didn't work out and therefore we're going to shift to this instead? Especially if it's something we're going to be funding or voting on?
Yes, in a couple of places, Dr. Barnes and Mr. Butler will be lifting some of that up in our academic excellence because they're going to get more into the execution. And you may recall during the presentation, I noted, though we're not focusing on Tier 3, we can't do them in isolation. So when we talk about where we are with our Tier 2, we have to bring in execution because to Dr. Watts' point, we're going to celebrate and lift up what worked, do more of that and scale, and places that we need to course correct, we'll be identifying things that we'll be taking off the table. Or as you may remember in just previous conversations, a lot of this is around implementation fidelity. So we'll be talking about where we're adjusting implementation. That'll naturally come up during the conversation.
So when we bring to the BAC quarterly, the dashboard, which is also going to be publicly visible at all times. Obviously, at BAC, there's a more formal conversation around it, but it'll be publicly accessible to you at all times and to the public at all times. But that is an opportunity, in my eyes, is when we would be talking more about the 45-day plans. Because you want to be able to see the data, but you want to know what produced that data, what didn't work, and what worked. And that's where these discussions would happen.
Okay.
And the last question I had was, and again, this doesn't have to be necessarily public-facing, but I know one thing that was discussed at the conference that some people went to, and was it in Florida? But where you kind of
Yes.
saw some of the schools had scores or whatever at the front door of every school, and I know we're not doing that, but I guess it led me to then think, with all of this great disaggregated data and this dashboard rollout, how much of that will we see as far as even just at a school level or a grade level, a cohort level, where the struggles are, especially since like in our districts, how, so we know what's going on?
You will be able to drill down to the school level.
Okay. Awesome. This is fantastic, so thank you for all this work.
Dr. Howard Hall?
Yes, good job. Very thorough. You mentioned when, how, and also the who. But I want to bring up an issue that's brewing right now in the community, and it's when I look at student achievement, attendance, belonging to, and future ready, that 2 schools in my district, K-8s, Godly and Rice Creek, and also West Chatham, they've been informed that they won't have a football team, and we want them to be future ready because that is a segue for high school football. And I'm being told that there's no one there, they can't find anyone to coach. But I do know in middle schools, you don't hire an additional outside person to coach. You use the staff that's there. Middle schools have academic directors, and they might not specialize in football, but they can certainly hire an assistant that's not certified. And I hate to see these schools and these students and parents suffer the consequence because nobody wants to step up to the plate to coach.
Yep, so I will defer to Dr. Barnes. That just came to my attention this morning, so I don't have all the background on it, and I don't even know if he does, but I'll defer to him. And I only heard that one school. It was West Chatham Middle.
Yes, ma'am, so that's correct. It's West Chatham Middle, and the challenge at hand is we don't have anyone who's stepping up to be a coach. And so there are some things that we have discussed in terms of who can be other personnel that can fill in to coach. But in some of these cases, some of the people that have volunteered could have been actually school administrators. And so that's where we are in seeing what would that impact be on a school administrator to serve as a head coach of an athletic team, and if that would take away from their responsibilities. So we have been in conversation with the district athletic director, Mr. Sanders, and we're trying to come up with a plan because we do not want those students to not have an opportunity to have middle school interscholastic athletic competition.
Because
So
I know
we will-
Rice Creek and Godly would play West Chatham, so if West Chatham doesn't have a team, that limits the opportunity for them to, right.
Yeah.
And then I have a question about, we know that we're using a mirror as an indicator, grades K through second. What are we using to determine a child's fine motor skills and writing ability? Because they're on a mirror and they're learning, they're reading, but they can't even hold a pencil and form letters. So something needs to be done to address those fine motor skills and writing skills because there's muscle memory in writing which enforces reading.
I will defer to Mr. Butler.
So when we're looking at our kindergarten in particular, we're looking at our G-KIDS assessment. That is something that, as you may recall, as part of our grading audit and our grading revision, something that we work to refine and provide additional clarity to teachers on how to leverage the G-KIDS resource and assessment to provide support. So in short, that assessment and that tool is used at the kindergarten level.
And I guess we can talk with the experts in the, the early childhood who can really
Give more
yeah,
details.
be more detailed because I do know that's an issue. I have a grandson I work with and having to teach him how to write. And I know that if he's struggling, others are.
Thank you. We'll take a note of that.
Okay. Mr. Moss?
Yes, this is so exciting. I'm with Ms. Campbell and everyone here. When I got to this page, oh my God, this is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. Thank you all. I guess it was 2 years ago when I went to Bowling Green, Kentucky, and we visited the schools there and the schools that were participating in the Leader in Me. One thing that I brought back from that, and when I look at this, it's so important. Part of it was the kids took ownership. So you walked into classrooms And each classroom, the kids were telling you, this is our goal. Our goal is we will be at 75% by the end of the school year. And it was, I think maybe quarterly, they would put the scores up. And there was a celebration of that. I think it's important that our kids take ownership of the success that they can have. And our parents take that ownership as well. So yes, I want you to communicate to us, but let's find a way to communicate to parents, this is the progress at each school. This is the progress you're making. At the beginning of the school, this is where we are now. At the end of this semester, we're going to have a celebration because this is where we're going to be. Now, this is where we bring in our corporate partners. Let's get our corporate partners to help us celebrate. Let's, you know, I can call Stratton. Let's get Leopold's. Let's get everyone, Kona Ice, everyone, as we reach these milestones. Because if you get the kids excited about this thing, kids are competitive. So let the kids at Rice Creek, they can compete. They may not be able to compete in football, but they sure can compete in reading. And let's just be, and this is for our communications people. These reports, let's advertise that these are going to be shared at these meetings. Let's invite the public to these BAC meetings. Let's invite the public to our board meetings with these headlines. This is what's going to be shared. This is exciting. I'm stoked.
I think one of the things that I'm very excited about this year is the focus on weekly data meetings at the school level. And yes, our culture around accountability, a data-driven culture, that is beginning to thrive in our district, and I'm very excited about that. What you don't hear about what's also happening at the school level. And our focus this year is on weekly data meetings, that culture that you're talking about where there's more student ownership, classroom ownership is beginning to cultivate. It's not captured here. So I'm excited about where that might go in the future. But it is, the seeds are planted for that to happen.
Mr. Barrow?
I don't. I just want to say, listen, big kudos to Dr. Watts and her team of professionals. Awesome briefing, ma'am. The only question that I had was in regard to the dashboard, which you answered, and the fact that it's going to be organic and that the district is going to make decisions as they get data to make it more agile. But that was my only question. But great job, man. Great job.
Okay, first, approximately how many people compose your team?
How many people compose my team? 5.
Okay.
Let me say this, I have 5 direct reports.
Okay. Suppose 1 or 2 of them win the lottery. How can we be sure that this whole project will continue to generate itself and move forward, given
So
the chance that you know, yes, we have mobility, we have transitions and that kind of thing.
definitely appreciate that. One of the things that I've tried to underscore since the bringing forward the strategic plan is I get the pleasure of standing before you and talking about our work, but it is truly our work. And the dashboard is a central repository. But what I love about the way in which we're working is it's not person dependent. So each chief has a responsibility in monitoring, each school, each teacher, and you've heard a little bit about the data meeting. So it's not dependent on me or dependent on a specific person on my team. We are leading the work, but we're setting it up in a way that it'll live beyond a person and it will be timeless.
Okay.
I would go so far as to say, I see several of the chiefs sitting out there. Even Assistant Chief Washington probably could have gotten up and done a piece of this presentation today. Kurt could have gotten, Mr. Hediger, any of our chiefs sitting out there today, maybe not as detailed as Dr. Taylor, but they would have been able to get up and cover this content today almost at the same level that she could.
Well, that's really encouraging and reassuring to hear. One thing I've noticed with the superintendent, when we get a problem from a parent and we send it on to her, what I really love is that in her response, she says, I am turning this over to Ms. Campbell, or I am turning this over to Dr. Howard Hall. So you know there's a person who's going to be dedicated to solving that problem. And it's not just going out into the ether and wherever it ends, it ends. So in that thought, it's good to know that, Dr. Taylor, if you win the lottery, that there are other people who hopefully will have the joy, because you've taken ownership of this. It shows in you. It's like you own this, like this is your child. So I'm happy to know that you can pass that joy and fervor on to the other chiefs so that there's nothing that's going to derail this because we're lacking in the expertise that we need to move it forward. So I think that's just great. The other thing, Ms. Campbell kind of covered it about what we do when we make mistakes, how do we recover and continue. And you've covered that pretty much. We're not going to be afraid to make mistakes because this is a great undertaking. So mistakes are going to happen.
And that's part of the process.
Yes.
And looking at it in a sprint format or in a 45 days, that lets us look at what didn't go right so that we can course correct and not get to the autopsy and say, woulda, coulda, shoulda. But we're making adjustments in real time, and we recognize that in order to get where we need to go, we sometimes have to try things that may not work, and if they don't, the key is what adjustments did we make for the things that didn't work so that we can continue to move forward.
Okay.
Schools also have 45-day plans. So that is a piece of this that is top to bottom. So every school has a 45-day plan, and a similar iterative process is happening with the schools. They're looking at their data on a 45-day cycle, and they're making mid-course adjustments, and our principal supervisors are out monitoring and supporting and coaching around those 45-day cycles. So it truly is a cascading through line that I hope is, no, I don't hope. I know. I have the confidence and belief in the work that we're doing that is going to get us to our desired outcomes.
Okay.
I'll add, the only thing I'll add there is I kind of alluded to where we started, and just to show you how it's shared ownership. We landed on a 45-day plan because the schools are, I believe, in their second or third year of using 45-day plans, and instead of having the plans with all the bells and whistles, we were like, it's working for the schools, so let's use it for our strategic plan execution.
Very good. And anything that synchronizes like is
Yes.
probably adding strength. Well, I'm very excited because at our retreat, I know it's just going to be maybe a 30-minute presentation, but I really believe that the CT3 program that we have in place is going to make our teachers, it's going to give them the opportunity to do what we need them to do to make this work. Because in the end, to me, they're going to be the ones who deliver for us. And I think once everyone on the board is aware of that program, and I didn't see any particular programs that you plan to use to, other than the literacy programs, but this would be something, I guess, that would help in terms of culture and engagement and that kind of thing. So will there be any reporting on the teacher level of things?
You will hear, again, as I mentioned before, you'll hear that in AEC with Dr. Barnes and Mr. Butler. They'll be giving you updates on that implementation because those are tactics that they're actually executing, and they'll be letting you know what they're noticing and what they're learning from them.
Okay. All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions? Because we're doing good. That thing said 3:30 to 5 o'clock. It's 4:15.
The next presentation, though, will be more robust, because then we'll actually have data to share. And we'll actually see 45-day plans and whether they're working or not. So this is kind of like the prerequisite, get you ready for that.
Okay.
So
So Dr. Watts, when, because this is wonderful, this is a launching pad, this is wonderful. When will the other four board members get a chance to have a copy of this? Can they receive that
So
tomorrow so they can at least look at
They
it?
can receive a copy of it. It is also loaded in Diligent for any board member to access now. I think that's a problem we have not yet solved for as a team, is how do we connect the dots between all of these meetings? Because different board members are at different meetings, and sometimes we struggle to really understand who really has a full picture of what's going on, because things are presented to different
Yeah.
people over different, I don't know that we've solved for that.
Okay. Well, just to
We're
have
working on
this,
it, though.
just to have this, and just to read it, I think, say, if I weren't here, if I had this to read and go through, I get the gist of it.
Yes, and I think the dashboard, the public-facing dashboard is also going to be really important for
Okay.
board members, because again, you'll have access to that 24/7.
Okay. Okay, so Dr. Taylor, our next meeting, I believe, is October 27th, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And as Dr. Watts has indicated, we will be bringing the first quarterly review. Because of when the data is available, we won't be looking at all of the indicators, but we will have data and begin to have our first pass at our quarterly review.
Okay, and when is our Academic Excellence Committee next? Mr. Butler, can you tell us what that date is, so?
Yeah, that date will coincide with the board workshop, board retreat
Oh,
in September.
oh, wonderful.
And then
Okay.
the following date will be in November.
Okay, all right.
That will be a focus on retention and promotion.
Very good, okay. All right. I really want to thank Mr. Barrow again for being here. It's wonderful to have someone, a parent. He has 2 students still with us, one has graduated, so it's wonderful to have your input and have you here. So please continue to come, because that helps make this authentic for us.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, with that, we're adjourned.